There's something deeply unsettling about silence in the wild. It's not like the quiet in your bedroom at night, or the hush of a small town after midnight. It's older, ancient, like the land itself is holding its breath, watching and waiting. Tonight's stories come from the vast forests and black still lakes of northern Ontario, remote places where cell signals fade and voices don't always echo back. These aren't ghost stories in the usual sense. There are no haunted houses, no cursed objects, just wide open space and the terrifying possibility that something or someone is still out there. A woman gliding silently across the lake in the middle of the night, asking if the children are asleep. A scream that cuts through the trees and vanishes without a trace. Maybe they're ghosts, maybe they're memories, or maybe the forest holds onto things we're meant to forget. So turn off your lights, put on your headphones, and listen closely, because the trees remember, and the water never lets go. Story 1: The woman kayaking in the silent night. There's something about the Canadian wilderness at night. The way the trees sway in complete silence. The way the lake becomes a mirror of pitch blackness, only broken by the occasional ripple or soft breeze. I worked as a summer camp counsellor in northern Ontario. It was one of those remote camps where the Wi-Fi never reached, where you couldn't hear traffic, and where the night brought with it a kind of silence you don't get anywhere else. I was in charge of a group of 10-year-olds. Most of my job involved taking them kayaking, setting up tents, teaching them to cook over a fire and telling spooky stories they could laugh about in the morning. But that summer, one of those stories came to life. It was a calm night. The kids were all asleep, tucked away in their tents. My co-counsellor Mike and I sat by the lakeside smoking and chatting in hushed tones so we wouldn't wake anyone. The lake was still so still, it looked like polished obsidian, reflecting the stars and moon perfectly. There was a peacefulness in the air, until we noticed a light on the water. It was distant at first, just a faint glow moving slowly across the lake. We thought it might be a local out for a late night paddle, but something about the light felt wrong. It moved too smoothly, too silently. The air had shifted. As the glow drew closer, we realized it wasn't a flashlight or lantern. It was a faint shimmer of a lantern-style lamp, dim flickering. And then we saw her. It was a woman. She was sitting motionless in a narrow kayak, gliding across the lake, as though the water itself was pulling her along. Her hair was long and silver-drenched and hanging in thick ropes down her shoulders, some strands trailing into the water like vines from a drowned forest. Her skin was pale and wrinkled, leathery, like it had been soaked and stretched over time. But it was her eyes that did it. They were hollow, lifeless, yet somehow still saw everything. She didn't blink, didn't look around. She locked eyes with me as if she'd been looking for me specifically. She floated closer, not saying a word. Mike whispered, "Do you know her?" I shook my head, heart pounding. When the kayak drifted about 10 feet from shore, she finally spoke. Her voice sounded like dried leaves scraping against stone. "Are the children asleep?" Those 5 words. I'll never forget the way she said them. Like she already knew the answer. Like she wanted to confirm something for her own reason. I stammered, "Why, yeah, they're asleep. You should go." She smiled, not in a warm way, not even in a sinister way. It was a smile of someone who'd been waiting a long time. Then, without another word, she turned the kayak and drifted back into the darkness, No splashing, no sound. Just gone. Mike and I didn't speak for a long time. We sat there frozen, staring at the spots where she vanished. We didn't go to sleep that night. Around 3 a.m, we got a text from another counsellor. One of the kids in her group had woken up and claimed to see a woman with long hair standing near the water with her arms out like she was trying to hug the forest. We didn't tell the kids what we'd seen. We couldn't. They were already scared, and honestly, we were too. In the morning, the lake looked normal again. Birds chirped. The wind was gentle, but something felt off. Like the air had changed, like something had passed through and never really left. A week later, I asked one of the older staff members about the lake. She went quiet for a moment, then told me that years ago, a woman who lived nearby had lost her daughter while camping on the lake's shore. The girl had wandered off during the night and was never found. The mother blamed the camp. She came every night for weeks, calling her daughter's name across the water. And one night, she never came back either. They say her body was never found. Some say she drowned trying to follow the girl's spirit. Others say she just disappeared. But every few years, counsellors report seeing someone on the water. Always at night, always alone. I don't know what we saw that night, but that question still echoes in my mind to this day. Are the children asleep? It wasn't just a question. It was a check, a sign. And every time I think about that smile, I wonder what would have happened if I'd said no. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your own eerie encounters below. And remember, just because the lake is quiet doesn't mean you're alone. Story 2. The mysterious light and the nighttime chase in the forest. Some places just feel different. It's not always about what you see or hear. Sometimes it's the silence between sounds, or the way the trees seem to hold their breath, just waiting. I used to work as an outdoor summer camp guide in northern Ontario, Canada. If you've never been there, imagine a world of endless pine forests, crystal clear lakes, and remote islands where no cell signal ever reaches. It's beautiful until the sun goes down. That summer, I was assigned to lead a group of teenage girls on a 2-day, 1-night trip through the Tagami region. It's a series of winding trails, isolated campsites, and small uninhabited islands scattered across a wide lake. We hiked, we paddled, we told stories by the fire. For most of it, the trip felt like a postcard, until the second night. We'd set up camp on a small island maybe 300 meters from the mainland. There was only one other group in the area, and they were camping far north of us. We cooked dinner, sat around the fire, and were in our tents by 10:30. By 11 p.m, the wind had stopped completely. The lake was like glass, no sound, no movement, until we heard the engine. It started as a low rumble, then got louder. A motorboat, powerful, cutting across the water fast. I sat up in my sleeping bag, confused. There weren't supposed to be any other boats on the lake that night. I unzipped the tent and peeked outside. That's when I heard yelling. Voices. A man and a woman arguing, screaming actually. But I couldn't make out the words. Just raw anger echoing across the lake like it was bouncing off the trees themselves. Then came the scream. It was her. It cut through the night, sharp, panicked and real. Followed immediately by a splash. Then, silence. No boat engine, no voices. Just the sound of my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. I stepped out of the tent. The girls had already woken up. They were sitting in their tents with the flaps half open, wide-eyed and whispering. One of them, Sophie whispered, was that a woman screaming. I nodded slowly, trying to keep calm. I didn't want them to panic. I texted the camp leader, letting her know what we'd heard. Her response chilled me even more. She said one of the girls in her group had seen a woman standing by the lake earlier that night. Long dark hair, just standing there, not moving, not speaking, with her arms stretched out like she was waiting or mourning. That night no one slept. We sat around the dying fire, clutching our camping knives, listening, watching the water. But the lake never spoke again. At first light I took a canoe and circled the island, hoping I wouldn't find anything and praying I wouldn't miss something important. There was nothing. No boat, no body, not even an oar floating in the water. But I could feel it. We all could. Like something had happened out there. Something no one wanted us to find. Back at base camp, I started researching. Not just ghost stories, but real cases. That's when I discovered something I'll never forget. There's a long and tragic history in Canada involving Indigenous women who have gone missing or been murdered many near lakes, roads and trails. Some families never got answers. Some victims were never found. And many of those stories were forgotten. But the wilderness remembers. I started to wonder. Was the figure standing at the edge of the lake the night before one of them? Was the scream a memory replaying itself for anyone willing to listen? Or was something trying to warn us? Since that night, I've returned to the lake many times. And each time when I look out at the black stillness of the water, I get the same feeling. Like I'm not just looking at nature, but at a wound that hasn't healed. At a grave with no marker. At a story that was never told. Even now, I don't know what we heard that night. Maybe it really was a tragedy unfolding in real time. Or maybe it was something older, something echoing through the forest. A scream from the past, searching for someone who will finally listen. If you've ever heard something you couldn't explain while camping or hiking, tell me in the comments. Because sometimes the things we hear in the dark aren't meant to stay silent. In the city, fear is loud. Sirens, screams, alarms. But in the wild, fear whispers. It drifts across water. It lingers between trees. In both of these stories, something came close. Close enough to see, to hear, but not close enough to understand. Was the woman in the kayak a grieving mother? Or something that grief gave shape to? Was the scream on the lake a tragedy unfolding in real time? Or an echo from a past the forest refuses to bury? Maybe it doesn't matter, because some questions were never meant to be answered. What matters is that someone saw, and now so have you. So the next time you find yourself deep in the woods or standing by a silent lake under the stars, and the wind suddenly stops, and the water goes still, listen, not for what's there, but for what isn't, because silence isn't always empty. Sometimes it's full of everything left unsaid. And in places like these, the ones who were lost don't always stay that way. If you've ever seen something strange near the water, or heard a sound you can't explain, share it in the comments. Because sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that never made the news. And if you enjoyed these tales, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and ring the bell. The next story might be closer than you think.